Hey, how's it going? I'm Nick. I'm your physical therapist today.
Hi, I'm Snell.
Nice to meet you. Okay, so I'm looking at your chart. You suffered a burn on the back of your arm and kind of extended down to right before your fingers. So just to start, I want to ask you a few questions I had while reviewing your chart before we kind of get into the tests and before we get into the treatment of your burn. Okay, so first things first, how did you suffer the burn?
So I work at a coffee shop, and essentially while I was making coffee, some accident kind of happened where the steam pretty much just fell into my hand, and just a lot it happened so fast.
Were you wearing sleeves when this happened?
No.
No, you weren't wearing sleeves. The steam just kind of came up.
Yeah, just kind of
Okay. So how has this burn kind of affected your daily living? Are you still able to do the same things you were able to do, or is it prohibiting you from doing anything?
So because I'm primary right-handed, it has been very limiting, especially when just trying to take notes because I'm in grad school.
You're in grad school. What are you going for?
Doing a PA option, so just
Nice.
it's awesome. Just trying to get that going, but
Great.
it's kind of a little tough right now.
Great.
But yeah, so it's even taking notes, even just like typing, doing like any like overhead activities, even just trying to get dressed and like even brushing my hair, stuff, things like that. Kind of just it gets a little painful.
Do you work out at all?
Yes, I actually do. I'm kind of active, but even just lifting and just
Yeah, I haven't been able to work out as
No.
much. Okay. I know that can be frustrating.
Yeah.
Okay. Have you ever suffered a burn like this before, or is this the first time?
No, this is actually my first time, and
Okay.
it's just painful.
Alright, yeah, it's tough. Because this is your first burn, we'll get into some more like education about that a little later on. Do you have a history of smoking at all?
Nope, I don't smoke.
What about drinking?
I'll drink here and there, like when I'm out with my friends, maybe for like dinner or something.
Nothing crazy?
Nothing too crazy.
We're kind of past that point.
Yeah, just a little too old.
I hear you. Me too. So what's your pain level?
So usually when I just like wake up and stuff like that, it's close to an 8 out of 10.
Pretty tough.
8, like 8, 9, not 10, but
Okay.
but I do take meds to help with my pain.
They did give you medication.
Yes.
They gave you Percocets, right?
Yes.
Okay, we'll get into that a little later. I'm gonna ask you a few questions on that, but
Oh,
those
nice.
seem to be helping.
Yes. So when that's usually my pain level is about a 4 or 5.
Okay. Awesome. And then just one more question before we start to kind of get into kind of more tests. Is like, what's your diet kind of consist of?
So I eat like the normal stuff. So essentially, like in the morning, I have some eggs and toast. For like lunch, like maybe like a salad. So and then like dinner, like steak or even like again another chicken or something.
Okay, good. So you tend to eat a pretty healthy diet,
Yeah.
you would say?
I would say somewhat.
Okay, so overall you would consider yourself a pretty healthy person?
Yes.
Okay, so that's going to be pretty big for the healing of this wound, so that's good to hear. It's probably going to be a little bit easier road for you because you do take care of yourself. Okay, awesome. So now we're going to get into more of like the systems review, and I'm going to run a few tests on you, okay? So kind of going along with what I asked you before about what you eat during the day, so what about your water intake? Do you tend to drink a lot of water throughout the day? Do you stay hydrated? Like,
I feel like I do, but I drink about closely around to a gallon of water a
okay,
day.
that'll be good. That's good. That's if you're sticking around there consistently, that'll be very positive in terms of healing for this wound.
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay, before we do start this systems review, I did just kind of want to mention. You said you do go out and drink on the weekends. Totally normal thing to do, but just during this time, you might want to kind of relax with that a little bit because drinking could have some adverse effects in terms of the healing process. And right now, like our main priority should be to get this healed. So for right now, I would hold off on that. But when this wound starts to get better, feel free to kind of resume that. Okay, so first thing I want to do is I am going to check the sensation around the wound. If you want to give me your left arm first, just so you know what this feels like. Okay? So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to kind of very carefully work around the blisters. I don't want to get into the blisters yet. I'm going to work around the blisters and just give you a nice light touch sensation. Okay, that's what it should feel like. And I'm going to do it on your involved side, okay? So just a little warning, this might bother you a little bit. It shouldn't be too painful, but I just need to make sure that the sensation in the area is intact, okay? So if you don't mind closing your eyes for me. So does this feel the same as this one? As this?
Yes, just a little bit more painful on this side.
Yeah, this side's going to hurt a little bit more, but I just want to make sure you do have feeling. Okay, so keep your eyes closed. Is this feel the same as this?
Yeah, same thing.
Okay. Does this feel the same as this?
Same thing.
Very good. Okay, then does this feel the same as this?
Yep.
Okay, so good?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to measure which range of motion you have in your elbow. Okay? So I just want to see if the burn is kind of decreases the motion of that elbow. Okay? So be really careful. I'm just going to take you through the motion passively first. Is that okay? I'm going to measure that.
So right now I'm just tapping in got my kind of landmarks. And where to line up. Right, no problems with that? Okay,
So we're a little limited right now, but that could just be because we haven't been moving that arm a ton lately, so that's fine. When this burn kind of starts to go away, we'll start working on kind of ranging and kind of loosening up those tissues that are starting to tighten up. And they're just tightening up because we haven't been able to move as much, which is totally fine. So again, as the wound improves, we're going to work on the muscles around it to try to get you back to normal function. Okay. Okay, so to finish up the systems review, I'm going to go through and I'm going to take your blood pressure, I'm going to take your heart rate, I'm going to give you the pulse ox, so that's that little thing that you put on your finger, and I'm going to check your respiratory rate. Okay?
Sound good?
Okay, so overall, the prognosis for this one to heal is really good. You're young, you're active, you eat a healthy diet, you have no other health issues, no other comorbidities that are really going to impede the whole healing process. The one thing I did want to talk to you about is that there is potential for this wound to scar. Due to the depth of some of the parts of this wound, especially like where those blisters are, you may or may not have a scar once this is healed. And that's just something I kind of wanted to talk to you about. But other than that, stay on the Percocets as the doctor has ordered. Keep managing that pain, and just try to stay as active as you can without, making the wound worse. So no overhead stuff right now. Try to limit the use of that arm, just during this kind of phase of healing. And again, just stick to that nice diet. Try to add a little bit more protein, and just make sure we're still drinking lots of water. I like that you are drinking a gallon of water a day. That should be adequate to kind of keep this wound hydrated. It's kind of like I said before. When you got burned, this wound got totally dehydrated. All the proteins in that area are totally denatured. So you need to kind of replenish your body with lots of protein, lots of water to keep this area nice and moist, and to give the body, kind of the building blocks to build that tissue. Okay. But overall, the whole prognosis for this wound is going to be really good, and I think it's going to heal really well. Okay.
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
Yep.
All right, let's get to it.
All right.
Okay, so just some tips on how to kind of protect the wound and kind of promote as much healing as possible. To kind of incorporate into your daily life. So we kind of talked about this already. So increasing the protein in your diet to give the body the nutrients it needs to build that new tissue. So I don't want you taking any systemic antibiotics. So for this, it's relatively superficial. So if there is any infection, it'll be it'll be on the surface. It won't go out through your whole body. So if you do take a systemic antibiotic and don't use a topical at home, now you're just decreasing your overall immune function. That can just kind of slow healing. So we said this before, you may or may not have that scar. So if you do develop a scar later on, there's like vitamin E creams or even possibly corticosteroids you can take that'll kind of decrease that scar, make it look better, make it more functional. So if you go home and I'm gonna take care of those blisters today. If you go home and those blisters come back, they don't just leave them. When you come back, kind of like let us know, and we're gonna have to debride them again. You do not want those blisters around. You want them debrided. And on the last one, I wanted to kind of share with you. So that area around the blisters that's really red, if those get like super painful or just kind of irritable at all, you can use just a cold compress on those, and that'll kind of dull the pain. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, so if you kind of stick to those things and kind of do those things at home, the wound is going to heal really well. You should, this should go along pretty smoothly. Okay, so the location of the wound is on the dorsal aspect of the right arm. The burn extends all the way down to the dorsum of the hand, just below the wrist, so the fingers are not involved in the wound, or were not involved in the burn. She suffered the burn through a scald injury. So I classified the wound as superficial partial thickness and superficial, so the areas where there's blisters, those are the superficial partial thickness, meaning that the burn went all the way down to the dermis, and the red areas around the wound, I thought that was just superficial, meaning that just the epidermis was involved, and the erythema is just due to vasodilation and blood flowing to the surface of the skin. For the peri wound, I just kind of said that it was just erythema around the blisters. So again, just blood flowing to the surface due to the injury. In terms of the wound edges, around the blisters, it's really red. And again, the erythema from the superficial wound, but if you go down here, the wound edges are very even. So it looks like she had something on her wrist that kind of protected that portion of the skin. So in terms of the wound exudate, so there was a moderate amount of serious drainage coming out of the wound. So the drainage was very thin, watery, and clear, so that's kind of characteristics of serious drainage. And there was drainage on the inner side of the wound dressing and minimal on the outer aspect of the wound dressing, and there was some drainage on the wound bed during dressing removal and some drainage after prolonged treatment, so that's classified as moderate drainage. So in terms of debridement, you would debride this wound. So the blisters, you need to get rid of the blisters. So you would debride the blisters probably with a scalpel, and then cover the opening. So in terms of treatment of the wound, what I would first do is I would debride the blisters, so with the scalpel. So I would use sharp debridement to get rid of the blisters, and then the underlying tissue of the blisters could heal through epithelialization. In terms of gauze, I would use some type of non-adherent dressing, I would use a gauze, and then I would use some type of antimicrobial on the gauze, because with these partial thickness burns, you need some type of surface antimicrobial in order to reduce the risk of infection, because the wound is being left open after the blister is debrided. So that would be the primary dressing, and to hold that dressing in place, I would probably wrap light gauze around it, just to make sure that it doesn't move, and also the light gauze wouldn't provide a ton of compression, because pain is kind of a limiting factor here. We don't want to put too much stimulus into the forearm when it's so irritated with the burn. And also I wanted to kind of avoid any type of self-adherent products, because I don't want something sticking to the superficial burn that's around the blisters. And also the gauze, the secondary gauze that are wrapped around, they can help with the absorption of exudate, because it is moderate exudate, so there's a decent amount of drainage coming out of this wound. So wrapping the gauze around the impregnated gauze would help absorb the drainage. Okay, so in terms of measurement for the wound, for using the rule of nines, I would say that 3.4% of the patient's body has been burned, because it is the entire dorsal aspect of the forearm. It only goes up to the carpal heads. And if the whole arm is 4.5%, excluding the fingers would give you the calculation of 3.4% of the body being burned. Hypertrophic scarring or just scarring in general. She won't need a skin graft because the wound didn't go that deep, but she could long-term use vitamin E creams or some type of corticosteroid injection to try to limit the effects that her scar has on her function.